Hello, Rick here, Certifiably in-game. Picard trailer, excited, done with the intro. So, the Picard trailer dropped recently, but I'm not going to be playing it here because... copyright. Suffice to say, it's a tantalising look into the overall tone of the show, and it looks like it's going to be going for a dramatic dive into Picard's character, which conflicts slightly with the lighter-hearted snippet we saw from the CBS showreel, that hey, it's just a teaser, and on its own it probably won't convey too much information. But it does start to outline a brief timeline for us. So from very early announcements, the show was rumoured to be set in 2399, 20 years after Picard's last appearance, which would have been in Star Trek Nemesis. But this was before they'd even begun any work on the show at all. Patrick Stewart has also stated that it was set 20 years after All Good Things, which would place it at 2390, so there was a bit of leeway. We also know that the series is going to involve the Romulan people in some capacity, and that Romulus has been destroyed. The last we saw of the Romulan people, apart from Nero, was in Star Trek Nemesis, that saw a clone of Jean-Luc Picard, Shinzon, attempt to control the Empire for the Remans. Picard foiled the attempt, and some in the Romulan military acknowledged Starfleet's aid. On top of this, ever since 2368, Ambassador Spock had been trying to covertly reunify the peoples of Romulus and Vulcan, and was making gradual, if heavily opposed, progress. In 2387, the Hobus supernova occurred and wiped out the Romulan star system. Yes, that's not how supernovas work, and several stories set after this event actually turned that into a plot point. But that's not important right now. The after effects to this supernova were that Ambassador Spock disappeared into a black hole and apparently died. He actually ended up back in time and in an alternate Star Trek universe that became the Kelvin timeline films, Star Trek 2009, Darkness and beyond. The second effect was that it forced the Romulan Star Empire to flee, fracturing its people. Under this event, Romulans who were loyal to the government became even more militaristic and tried as best they could to continue their standoffish way of life, while others reached out to the Federation for aid, probably spurred on by Spock's efforts in helping their people in his attempt at reunification. So this trailer alludes to an event that necessitated a rescue armada, the biggest ever seen apparently, spearheaded by Jean-Luc Picard. It also says that this event was 15 years ago today. A very specific phrasing that makes me think that this is a deliberate choice and not a mistake or an estimate. From the other set leaks we've seen, I'm thinking that Picard is set to make an appearance at some sort of Starfleet gathering for a speech, as the trailer makes it quite clear that he has retired from Starfleet. So, as depicted in Star Trek Countdown, a comic prequel to Star Trek 2009, set in the Prime universe and licensed by CBS, he had become the ambassador to Vulcan and maintained close ties to Ambassador Spock, supporting his reunification efforts. With Spock out of the picture now, Picard may have chosen to pick up where his colleague left off in trying to help Romulus. The trailer also says that then the unimaginable. This, I suspect, is the destruction of Romulus. If this is the case, and they are choosing to maintain the canon set up by their own CBS media as well as the Paramount films, then that would place the destruction in 2387. Whatever happened exactly, Picard was an admiral at the time of resigning from Starfleet, which may contradict the position of ambassador. I'm not sure if you can be both. Now, it is a trailer and they can chop up dialogue, so it doesn't necessarily portray the destruction of Romulus and the date of Picard's rescue armada as occurring at the same time, so we might be seeing Picard have made an effort in response to some other event on Romulus to aid or evacuate people, only to have Hobus explode and wipe out Romulus a year later or something. However unlikely that is. His resignation from Starfleet could be in the face of all his efforts to help going up in smoke, the infighting of the Romulan people combined with Starfleet's own inability to prevent the destruction, fueling a loss of faith in Starfleet, the Romulans, and himself. Picard has always held himself and others to a high standard of performance and moral righteousness. It has been both a strength of his and a weakness. So it's very possible that such a failure would weigh heavily on himself and the organisation he serves. I'm not sure I want to see a forlorn Picard, but I can easily picture it. Especially as he has no family to speak of outside of his former crew, who have mostly moved on. Riker is on the USS Titan, Data is dead or captain of the Enterprise E, depending on what CBS choose to canonise. And Picard lost Renee and Robert some years earlier. His guilt over Jack Crusher dying could have won out over any relationship with Beverly, and, well, like I said, I can picture it. As the 15 years is in reference to the Armada, then the setting of the show could be at any time, but I don't see Picard's rescue efforts straying too far from 2387, being in preparation or response to the Hobus event. So add 15 years to the destruction of Romulus, and the show may be set in 2402. So I'm a little confused as to the exact date, as I've heard 2389, 2398, 99 and now this. I'm hung up on the date, as depending on the actual year it could hint at another major event that Picard was a part of. As for the uniforms we've seen, I like it so far. I wish the collars were a little more starched and high, but they could be trying to move further away from the militaristic look, which a rigid collar would bring. This series looks to be approximately 25 to 27 years after the Dominion War, and Starfleet does tend to be very quick about demilitarising in peaceful times, so it makes sense to return to a lighter tone uniform. The badge has yet to be seen, but we have gotten a good look at this Starfleet insignia, so perhaps this will be the badge too. In some of the far shots, it looked like the tunics might have had a Delta-style front, or even an elongated edge on one side in the science uniform, but that could be the light. I think it would look cool though, right? Like a medical division version, like a lab coat. So, from what's been leaked and revealed so far, I think that we are going to see a bit of a broken Picard, but a lighter Federation. I speculated some time ago that Picard may be disillusioned. I think I said CBS would have him do a Luke Skywalker, but as long as he's not been all mopey about everything and brooding, I'm okay with it. I'd hoped he'd taken up archaeology again to keep himself occupied. Then again, I did also say that I didn't want to see him return to the vineyards, as there are too many memories associated with the place, and, well, it looks like he pretty much retired there. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be a series about him rediscovering his explorer's heart after suffering what he perceives as a cataclysmic failure on his part. So yeah, that's about all I wanted to cover from the trailers and leaks, putting it bluntly. Most of the media surrounding Star Trek that isn't a TV series or film often gets overlooked and ignored by the shows, and in some cases that's okay, there's a lot of fluff out there. The supernova, though, was referenced in Star Trek 2009 and said to take place in the Prime timeline, where this show is set, that is fact. The Countdown comic could easily be overruled, however, as it is a comic, and CBS has even invalidated its own Discovery tie-in novels, so I really don't think they pay attention to anything that isn't a show. The supernova didn't even originate in the Hobus star system until the comic said it did, so if they throw that out, they can do whatever. Although the uniforms do bear a lot of similarities to the ones depicted in Countdown, especially the pips being relocated to the front of the tunic and the high collar, but equally, they don't have to stick to anything, as a lot of time would have passed between then and now. I mean, apparently 15 years or so. Like all of you, I'm going to be keeping an eye out for any more information I can harvest from Picard's vineyard, and I'm hopeful that we'll get a decent, believable and faithful continuation of the Star Trek universe. Seriously, it's stuff like this that makes me realise why Disney wiped the board clean when it took over Star Wars. Trek needs to take better care of its continuity.